Yes, great to be here, everybody. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO and founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, your virtual assistant, one of the first generative AI companies pre-transformer models. At GST, we believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. And it's with pleasure that I have my incredible guest. By the way, we had some technical difficulties, and for some reason, we are rebroadcasting again. But I have my incredible guest, Sanjay Bhatia, who's a 7-time serial entrepreneur with several significant exits under his belt. In fact, one of them was with Rihanna in the Fenty brand. And so, with that, I'd like to bring Sanjay on to talk about it. Hey, Sanjay. So,
Hey there. Well, happy Thursday, everyone.
I feel like this is Groundhog Day.
There you go. Doing it again.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about your background, your entrepreneurial background, Sanjay, and how you came to where you are today with Rendai.
Yeah, so working on scaling Rendai right now. It's actually my seventh AI startup. I've had several from analytics to fashion to finance. The last one we used AI and LiDAR during the pandemic to measure people from a social distance. So we actually helped Rihanna's Fenty brand launch their lingerie stores. And at the time, you couldn't walk up to someone with a tape measure because of social distancing rules. And so we were able to use technology to solve that problem and make that launch experience possible. And that was very exciting. So shortly after that, I kind of get back into. I'm a free diver, so was buying some new masks. I had a question about this new mask that had a mini tank on it. I was like, well, can I pump this with my electric bike pump? Because I'm also an electric biker. And Gary, we go together sometimes. And so I gave him my information and no response. And I was
Wait a
like,
minute. So, you were trying to pump the mask?
I was just trying to buy the mask and I needed to know if the pump I already had would work.
So, tell me about this mask? This sounds interesting. What kind of mask is
And
it?
so it's a full face snorkel mask, and it has just the snorkel on one side, and it has a tank, like a scuba tank, but much smaller on the other. And so it's for free diving where, you still hold your breath as much as possible, but when you need to breathe, if you want to stay down longer, you have about 20 minutes of air.
And so, you know, how long does the air last?
But 20 minutes. So it's not like
Oh,
scuba where
that's
you just
not bad though. That's
yeah,
a
yeah. So you can
pretty.
go you can kind of do your normal free dives, and when you like see something you like there's some lobsters or some fish and you're like, hang out there for a little while, you can breathe there for a few minutes before going back up.
That must be really interesting. Did you ever try one of them, Sanjay?
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. That the challenge is you got to pump it, and so you can't use a normal pump because normal pump for bikes or cars kind of goes up to about 100 psi, and this thing needs 4,500 psi.
4,500.
Yeah.
So
So
how do
we
you pump them up?
you take it to a scuba shop, and you get them to do it.
And how much is it to pump up? Well, it's interesting.
They'll do it for like $10, but the company sells these pumps, and so the answer I was expecting was like, no, you can't pump it with a normal pump, but we sell this, which you can buy from us. But I had no response whatsoever, and then we surveyed hundreds of websites to find out that 97% of the time, no one was answering buyer questions anymore in a timely manner. And so we built the first version of Rendai really as an AI agent that could understand like somebody's website and answer questions about products and services. We built that out for sort of late stage funnel, and then realized, wow, this can be applied to engagement at the early stages. So we connected it to advertising platforms like Meta and Google. And so when we found that when buyers come in, if you, instead of asking them their information, you just give them a chance to have a conversation with your AI and ask their questions, they're 20 times more likely to engage. And
Interesting. So the 22. So how does that work? So you think about using this AI to be able to help us with the buying process. Why do they engage more?
because people just they don't know if they want it or not, right? So like we work with different companies like Ford and Procter and Gamble, and a lot of times people just want to ask questions about the product. They don't want to be bothered by a salesperson or have more spam on their inbox. And so if they're like my question was, can I pump it with my electric bike pump? If I gotten that answer, I might not buy the product, or I might buy the pump, right? And so like I didn't want to give them my information and get a bunch of coupons or whatever else until I get my questions answered. So once you answer, people are really there to get information, not to necessarily give you their information, right? So people have it. The world has it backwards right now, where everything's a landing page with a form on it. It just doesn't work anymore. You see bounce rates of 99% on landing pages, yet people advertise those anyway. It seems like that's the cost of doing business. Is we don't see it that way. We think people show up because they want to engage with the brand, and we have an AI experience that's really easy to set up that lets the buyer do that.
So when they're engaging, what makes them want to engage with a brand? So whether it's travel or products, what truly makes them want to engage?
And initially, it's just curiosity. They saw the ad, or they heard about something, they found the website or YouTube video, and they're just curious, and that might be all it is. And they may not be in the market. But that engagement, if nothing else, like you've educated the market on your product, they may people think that if they disqualify themselves, that's somehow a bad thing. Well, it's not. You don't want to waste a salesperson's time with somebody that's just never going to buy. So it's better to just let the AI disqualify those people, engage a lot more people, and then the ones that are qualified, just book an appointment at the right time instead of like playing phone tag with your buyer.
Now, how does that work though? What helps the engagement? How do you make somebody the increase the propensity that somebody's going to buy? What do you do? How does the AI do that?
In vector, so it creates a vector database of all of the knowledge in the product, the policies, the agreement, anything on the website, and so it becomes a product expert that's much more well versed than perhaps even some of the best salespeople. So whatever obscure question somebody asks, or they might ask a very personalized. We have a client female, they have a hormone free menopause solution, and we get questions like, is it gluten free, or is it, does it help with sleep? And the salespeople may not even know some of these answers, but the AI does, because it's in the ebooks and product documentation.
Now it's interesting, and you look at hyper personalization. We just talked about, we talk about diversity and this inclusivity across the board, especially in travel and entertainment. You look at it, one of the big barriers is language, right? How do we go down through and use AI to be able to help us to break down those barriers, not only from the language perspective, Sanjay, but in terms of how to culturally deal with that person? Some cultures are a bit more modest, right? So Japanese say yes doesn't mean when they're saying hi that they're saying yes and agree. That just means they're being polite. How can we use these tools to help us enhance that engagement in that relationship?
Yeah, for example, when you're shopping, so you're shopping for outfits, you're in Japan. If the way people kind of dress in some countries, if you dress like that in Japan, you get arrested. There's a lot of
What is that? What way not to dress in Japan?
There's just all kinds of little rules. Singapore,
Really?
you get different rules about even things like bubble gum, or there's just cultural rules, and some of them are codified in the law. And so I think the last thing I heard about in Japan was somebody, like in the U.S., if you go to like a park or something, people tend to like do engravings on trees that they'll put like who they're married to or whatever it is. But if you do that in Japan, you actually can go to jail just by putting like initials in a heart. Also just the way you dress, like it's in some countries the certain things that are acceptable or won't work in Japan, and vice versa. Like if you some things that are appropriate in Japan, you may not want to do that in the Netherlands, things like that. And so I think the shopping experience is one. When you're like buying outfits for your trip, it can kind of help you in that. But there's sort of a greater theme in terms of what is it you really want to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we're just like sort of building toolboxes, and we don't think is enough about like, well, what do I want to build?
The thing is, you look at it, and this hyper personalization aspect of the AI, how's it going to help us to really break down barriers for groups, right? So, I mean, it seems like we could hyper personalize and go out, and whether it's finding the right kind of accommodations in a hotel, maybe you like wheelchair access, maybe you like this type of food in a hotel, maybe you like gluten free or vegan. How can that you talk about engagement, right? And on Rendai, you do a lot of that. But how do we go down through and use those tools to make it even better for us so that we're more prone to buy, and we get down on the, the infobesity that's around us for everything. How do we get down through, whether it's, somebody doesn't speak, they use sign language. How in the world can we help them using the generative AI? What powers does generative AI have to be able to help different kinds of groups?
So as I've built AI companies over the years, what's shifted is how little data you need to add to make something work. It used to be, you would need minimum, 10,000 data points, highly structured, to be able to do anything. So what's interesting about generative AI is it can work with like almost no structure. So you can leverage existing documentation, logs, customer experiences, like almost as is. So with Rendai, you go in, you put in all the different documents you have. Here's links to my sales brochure. Here's a link to my knowledge base, and it sort of just works with it. It doesn't. Previously, with previous generation technologies, before transformers, you would have had to take that data, really hire a team of data scientists, data engineers to restructure it in a unified way. And maybe they do it right, maybe they do it wrong. And so the opportunity is really not that this wasn't possible for, I mean, it's been possible for a long time, but you really needed to build a team of data scientists and engineers and have at minimum 10,000 nearly perfect data records to make it work. And now we're able to do it with, I mean, our new outbound campaigns, you give it 5 customer websites and it knows how to write a script that engages them with high efficiency.
Yeah, let's talk
So
about that. How does that work? So let's say somebody comes in, they're trying to book a ticket or they're trying to book an experience. How does that help? Like understanding them. How much better do the tools get? You said 6 times it knows those customers, right? And the kind of things they want. How does that really help us with the experience, whatever that is?
yeah, you don't have to structure the data. You can just sort of like give, something like Perplexity, like, hey, here's all the trips I've done in the past. And based on that, I can infer, like, okay, well, you decided to fly, first class on longer trips and you don't seem to care on shorter trips. And it can just make all these like inferences without like all that data engineering need to be done, or like having to ask a bunch of surveying the buyer with a bunch of detailed, very structured questions or multiple choice or like yes no in nature. We just don't need to do that anymore. We can just feed it like, hey, here's my history, just like you would go to a great travel agent that's traveled the world and they've done things. They're like, oh yeah, you're going to want to take the comfort class on this long trip, going from Palm Beach to Atlanta doesn't really matter necessarily. It's a short trip, and plus, you're going to want to eat a meal at this time, and so all these little things that like it's just a lot of common sense. So a lot of people like to talk about AI superhuman. We just think of it more like, what if you had an intern that never slept and never quit? Interns can do a lot of little things, so we use AI just to do a lot of little things, and it's just doing it 24/7.
No, I agree with you. We say it's like your grandmother that loves you and cares about you unconditionally and help guide you through the process. How much have these models changed with Perplexity, ChatGPT in the last 6 months, Sanjay? How fast are these models changing to be able to
Quite a
help?
bit. So the reasoning there, so for Perplexity, it has this unique system where it finds the sources and cites them and even lets you control them. So for my personal things, I tend to prefer to use Perplexity because if I say something to somebody, that way I can back it up with like, hey, here's the source of where this came. Maybe it's wrong, right? Right.
Yeah,
But
do you have that happen? How often is it wrong?
I don't see it as wrong as often. Well, where the main thing is when it's out of date information. So I tested, I was testing R1 on Perplexity versus O3 on OpenAI recently, and I asked it, "Who's the president?"
Wait a minute, O3. Did you get the pro version for O3, or what did you do?
It was after it became available, so
I see.
they put it out. But the interesting thing is that initial O3 release, it couldn't answer who's the president. It sort of,
Really?
yeah, that was my test, and it failed it, because it speculated on probabilities based on when it was trained back in September. And so in September, we didn't know, right? And so just a basic question, like, if you get unconscious, they sometimes ask you, what's your name, who's the president, what year is it, that kind of thing. So these basic things of a conscious human, even these super, super advanced reasoning models, when reality changes, they struggle with it. So what's nice about Perplexity is it's able to keep up with all the articles, and Grok as well is probably even further along. It can keep up with down to the second
Have you
updates.
used Grok?
I have not used Grok yet. I have not used Grok 3 yet. I have used the first two versions.
Mm-hmm.
And so Grok 3 is very interesting because things are happening live as we speak. Comments that are being put up there, like, that is all being taken into consideration.
How are these tools going to change? What do you think a year from now? How these tools, what are they going to do to the experience we have in terms of engagement? How much better the is the engagement going to be because these tools are that much more precise?
Well, what they're getting more, it's not so much the precision. I think they're getting data access. So giving it your calendar, giving it kind of access to your email, where it's like read all your email, kind of knows what's happening with you. That's really what's happening over the next year. Like, Gemini is now part of Google. And so it kind of, based on your email, can answer things in interesting ways. And so it's sort of just like you would maybe give, if you had a great intern, you may give them access to some of your email accounts so they can do some of the things for you. So that's what's next, is this sort of like just this really effective intern that can do a lot of little things for me. I think in terms of we always talk in the AI world about like advanced mathematics and how they're able to solve these crazy problems, or like the fact that it was able to generate, like, every protein imaginable. And there's some specialized scientific areas, but I think for most people, it's a lot of little things. It's not so much that it's going to do these incredible things we never thought about. It's just like the world demographic, 150 countries have negative population curves right now. And so there's an army of interns that used to exist that doesn't exist anymore, right? So you can't
Mhm.
just hire young people to work at your companies and help you around the house, and so AI is going to take over all of those little things.
No, you're right about it. I mean, and what happens to the people that today have those mundane jobs? What's going to happen to them in another? Let's say they're doing, quality assurance or quality testing, QA on code. What's going to happen to them?
Well, first of all, mundane jobs are paying really well these days. I heard a stat the other day: you could work at Target, work the overtime. You can make $80,000 a year. In Palm Beach area, like, the price of just housekeepers, like, not just housekeepers, but like pairs and nannies. So when I was, a teenager and younger, like, these were $5 an hour minimum wage jobs.
Hmm.
Now these are nearly, becoming six-figure jobs. So mundane jobs are not low cost anymore. People are have to be paid very well to do mundane jobs. Why? Because there's no supply of labor, right? The people just don't exist in most countries. You look at India, northern Mexico, France, New Zealand. Those are some of the few places on earth with positive population growth. Nearly everyone else is negative. And this problem gets worse and worse. So nothing's going to happen to the people. What's going to happen to the people doing the mundane jobs? They're just going to get paid more and more, right? But so as a result, people aren't able to afford that. We're going to need to implement AIs to, at least in terms of the number of hours, take on more and more of that, because do you really want to pay in 20 years? You want to pay someone $250,000 to just watch your kids?
Well, I mean, the other thing is you think about, in Hollywood, there was a strike, right? Because the folks who were doing scripts were upset that the AI was going to take over. But quite frankly, I was playing around with some of the AI of building a script. It's really good. I couldn't believe it, actually.
Oh
It's not
yeah.
not 100% there, but it's like 80% there, and 80%'s a lot. And so, we look at it and we have, on one side, we have a lot of challenges. On the other side, we have some of the greatest opportunities we've ever seen, because the people that master these skills that can use these tools like Perplexity or Claude or ChatGPT, I mean, how much better, how much more efficient would you say? Let's take two groups, right? Somebody doesn't use these generative AI tools and somebody that does. How much more efficient are they just in their life than the persons that don't use the tools now?
we're starting to see people starting to double their productivity or do jobs or tasks that are at twice the level, right? So it's more in terms of like now someone junior can do most of a senior job in ways that just weren't possible. So it's not a fair comparison because it's almost like saying what how productive is someone with an iPhone or someone without a smartphone, right? Well, that doesn't exist. Everyone just buys the smartphone, right? So everyone's just going to get the AI. So there's no this population of people that don't use the AIs just doesn't exist. So it's a very theoretical conversation. In reality, everyone on Earth, especially now with these low cost models like R1 that are you can run locally. Like I've been able to run these things on my MacBook. So even if you're in a place with no internet, in theory you'll have devices like
What
rather
do you use, Sanjay? What tools do you use when you're running it on your laptop?
I was using the R1 on Olama.
How was that?
Test it out. It was good. It was a good experience. It was able to you do need a relatively new MacBook like the M4, but the fact that it can run ChatGPT 4 level results locally is pretty incredible.
Well, that's amazing. How does it update itself?
It doesn't update itself. In that one, it's not look. It doesn't have access to the internet, so it doesn't. So you just run that whatever model.
But how does it get the information? How does it know what to look for, right? So how does it condense all that data so it fits on your? Where's it pulling the data? Is it going out to the internet, or is it using it right from your? Is it
No,
just
it's all local. So it's what
how does
AI really is a way to
much does it
compress.
get that much data on there? You're talking about zettabytes of data, right?
Well, it's zettabytes of data, but a lot of data is redundant. So the AI models really what they're doing is they're compressing all human knowledge into something substantially more manageable. And so it's really a compression engine in a way. Like our brains are basically a compression engine. So you might see millions of cars in your life, but you don't like remember all the video, you know, frame by frame. You sort of like generalize it, right? So it generalizes all human knowledge in a way that amazingly enough can fit on your yeah. If you think about if we go to Mars, right? So we won't have internet access in Mars. How are things going to work? You'll have a some kind of local internet where
Starlink,
yeah, exactly, and then things
but
are
maybe that's how they came up with the name.
yeah. So that
So
so this just means that AI is something affordable for everyone on Earth. You can build a Raspberry Pi with an AI engine, distribute them in places where there's low income and give people access. So there's no scenario where someone just doesn't use AI. People are just going to do it.
So if you look at it, look at these tools, going back to what I talked about it for inclusivity. So somebody's blind, somebody's deaf. How do these tools to help them to engage better? Because sometimes, in the past we didn't really care, right? We didn't really care about the engagement from these groups. But how do these tools help us? Let's just say, somebody's is blind, right? With Braille. How do we do that? How does it work? What would you see as a scenario to be able to help with engagement?
Well,
With
these augmented reality visors are able to do some amazing things. So one, they can if we're in Korea and we don't know the Korean language, it can actually like visually right in front of your eyes replace the visual of the Korean sign with an English sign, and even use the right font and like squeezes it in there so it looks like it's kind of amazing. And so if you're blind,
you got to bring them along, so in case when we're in Korea tomorrow, we can
yeah,
or
we might need to do that. But
that's amazing.
so for a blind person, instead of doing that visual, it can describe or can answer questions. So if you're blind and you're asking questions about the scenario you're in, and it doesn't even have to be a full visor, even a pair of like Facebook has the Ray-Ban, or Meta rather has the Ray-Ban glasses that are able to do some of this stuff, so they can see what you see, and you can have a conversation with your glasses about what's in front of you.
I mean, that's amazing. Imagine, you want to book a hotel and all of a sudden you've got your meta glasses on. It takes you inside the hotel and shows you the room and gives you, has somebody there that is, basically a maitre d' or a representative of the hotel talking about the hotel. in real time with you. Would be incredible, actually.
Yeah, and it helps you navigate. It knows, where you are in the inside the hotel, like which way to the elevator, things like that. I have enough trouble finding the elevator, and I have, my eyes work. It's like, imagine, just being able not being able to see and not being able to find the elevator if you needed to.
No, I agree with you. It's
The AI,
amazing.
the AI can do that.
So, you look at it. What do you think, in terms of going back to this? We just talked about immersive technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality. By the way, what's the difference between the two? We talk about it, but is there a clear line of definition, or is it, what? How does that work? I mean, is a VR and AR the same, or
No,
are
no, no. So, there's a few major differences. So the main one is just that you have awareness of your, whether it's through a pass through lens, or there's different technologies. So one is like there's projectors and lenses where you have a pair of glasses and there's a see-through screen. So that's one form of augmented reality where you're still seeing with your eyes, but there's sort of additional visual cues that are in front of it. Another way to do it is by using advanced cameras. So you can essentially put cameras on a VR visor like the Meta Quest or the Apple Vision Pro, and it translates the outside world at a high enough frame rate that you can still walk around safely and see, perceive distance and everything in 3D, and you're not going to like bump into things or trip over things. So there's different forms of augmented reality. Virtual reality is simply you're in a virtual world, you're experiencing it, your actual outside environments, you know, completely ignored. And so augmented reality lets you sort of like be in the world with these things. If you had a VR on, you couldn't walk around safely. You just couldn't see, you just be tripping and bumping into things. Where augmented reality solves those problems, it also says, okay, well, there's a blank wall right there. Like maybe it'd be useful to put my calendar on the wall so I can just look at it, and then it can literally pick it up, like stick it to the wall in augmented reality, and then anytime you look over at that wall, your calendar is always there.
Oh, that's fantastic. So how would how would augmented reality work in these kind of experience we talked about where somebody doesn't speak the language and I can imagine having like a virtual concierge that would talk to you, that you look through your meta glasses and you'd have a conversation in your language, and yet you could be in Korea, right? You could be at a hotel or in Thailand, but you would have a direct conversation with somebody in your language. I mean, this is just
Yeah, the vision is actually further along, further ahead than the audio right now.
Mhm.
So its ability to sort of like change a sign from Korean to English, is actually works really well. The audio is kind of being worked on, and so like to take someone's audio, comprehend it, translate it not word for word, but translate the meaning properly. There are devices that are starting to do that. So we're in the early stages of that, but it is something that's available in products you can buy.
I've taken my iPhone and put it up to Russian, for instance, and it's translated it. It was unbelievable. Right, I turned the camera on. It was unbelievable, uncanny. Okay, we're coming up to the top of the show. Closing thoughts, Sanjay, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can reach me at Sanjay at Rendai.AI. And I think closing thoughts are just these advanced reasoning models are, really able to do things like that the GPTs just never could. And it's not so much thinking about superhuman AI intelligence. Is about like, what if you had a bunch of interns? What would you have them do in your personal life, in your business? It's a lot, all those little things that require kind of a basic level of common sense and human intelligence. We now have that. And we're embracing it at Rendai, and we think that's really going to be very transformational in 2025.
It sounds great. Well, Sanjay, thanks for taking time of your busy schedule to join us today. And thanks to all my audience for joining one more time. Simple Night Presents. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. We'll be back to you again soon. And Sanjay, I'll see you very soon. By the way, what time are you going to get over there?
I think it was 3 in the morning.
Okay, so I'll see you. See you. You'll be taking off. We're supposed to be there by 6, so I'll head over. Probably two. I'll be there 2 hours ahead of time. So
Okay.
I look forward to seeing you, my friend. Take care, everybody. Great seeing you again, and stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. Bye bye.